All right, well, why don't we get started then? It's about 5 minutes, close to 5 minutes after the hour. So I wanted to just introduce myself for anybody that's new. My name is Cameron Crowe, and I am one of the founders of Ponga. Welcome today, and thank you for joining us. We're looking forward to today's activity. This is a little bit of a different one that we're having from our prior events. We've held several of these in a row where we've talked a little bit about the company, the product, kind of our value proposition. We've had some best practice discussions. We've had guests come along. One of them's joining us again today, Kathy Stone, who's a professional photo organizer from Canada. And we've had the benefit of having them talk about a lot of the things that they've been doing relative to providing some best practices from both professional practice as well as personal. And so we've really been excited about the participation we've had in the past. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. Today, we're going to primarily be focusing all of our digital storytelling activities around kind of tips and tricks, and we'll talk a little bit about some new product capabilities and that sort of thing. I do, as always, let me do a couple of quick housekeeping things, especially since we've discovered that we've got to a couple of, how do I want to say, pretty gregarious individuals on the call that are happy to talk and interact. These sessions are best managed with lots of interactivity when we do a tips and tricks. So feel free to either raise a hand, interrupt, throw your idea out there. But you may find it more effective, since we're not having a formal presentation today, to either throw something into the chat and I'll moderate the activity going from this point forward. Okay, so everybody feel comfortable to just throw their hand up or throw their ideas or their questions or something they discovered about the product that they want to share with everybody else. So thanks again. So today, I think we're going to talk about, we'll kick it off primarily around talking about some new capabilities. We've added a feature called Quick Look. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at that or get a sense of it. We're also announcing a new kind of service that we want to offer you guys called a Zoomin pod, where we'll be able to develop kind of these one-on-one consultative onboarding product overviews that we can do for your personal purposes. If you're head of a genealogy group, or if you have a constituency of a community of interest, or maybe you have a large extended family that you would like to kind of bring into the Ponga membership, either for the purposes of the role that they may play in curating your own stories, or if you would like them to become subscribers and understand how to use it, we'll just hold a very small private Zoom-in pod just for your purposes. So Barb will talk a little bit more about those. We're also going to talk about the kind of the sequence around sharing and crowdsourcing information, and we'll walk through some of the step-by-step processes there. And then we'll also talk a little bit about adding multimedia elements to your curations, because we've gotten a lot of questions over the past couple months about, how do you add other media capabilities, link in from other services out on the web in the greater world. So, and then we've also, we probably won't necessarily demo this, but I would like to let you know that we've significantly improved our ingestion process, so that the photo uploading process, if you've noticed recently, is much faster than it has been before. We're very excited about the fact that we're now scaling our services so that speed and predictability are becoming, kind of hallmarks of our ability to deploy the service for your needs. So if you've recently uploaded a large number of photos, you should have definitely noticed a difference. If not, give it a shot and see what you think. And then lastly, we are going to be participating with the photo management, the photo managers in participating for their September promotions around Share Your Photos Month. And so they're doing a lot of activity as it relates to courses and webinars and events and things like that. So if you want to participate in that, we'll provide you the link, and you can sign up for that activity if you want as well. Okay. So with that, again, thanks for coming along, and I'm going to toss it over to Barb, and she'll talk a little bit about some of these new capabilities.
Sure. Thanks so much, Cameron. And you've already walked through really the key bits. And I'm very happy to do quick demonstrations of some of those things. I see that most of you are already members, and some of you, I think, are in the category we like to call the Ponga Curious. So we're delighted to have you join us. And quite honestly, we've been doing these now. I just thought about it this morning for about 6 months now. This is since our launch at Roots Tech, our first really exposure to the world back at
Thank
Roots
you.
Tech 2021. And we have learned so much from all of you and our members and their guests as they come back with ideas and suggestions and encouragement and directions. And sometimes that's about things like how to talk about a picture, what's in there. And sometimes it's about when you're organizing, how to think about organizing before you organize. And that, for example, was a key topic that Kathy talked about in last month's Zoomin session. And our guest here, as a matter of fact, Karen Ray, one of our participants today, will be our guest speaker next month, talking specifically about stories in pictures and what is a story and how is a story different from a caption or different from just a memory? And some of that process. And we think a lot about that because you know what? It's funny. Though you're spending a lot of time pulling in pictures, and we spend a lot of time talking about pictures, it actually isn't about the pictures. It's about what you can't see in the pictures, and that's why it's worth putting into Ponga. That's what is it about these pictures that was worth taking a picture of in the first place? Why is it worth saving them? And those are the kinds of stories that frankly get little tingles running up the spine. Those are the things that we believe to be so compelling and important. We also have, I know among you, I won't call you out, but I know we have among you several very sophisticated genealogists. And one of the things we've also learned is how much the functionality that Ponga has in being able to bring in content from anywhere in the web and put that content anywhere on a very large image is a very powerful thing when you're doing research because you can be bringing in all of these bits and pieces that you can be coming back to later. And I know, Shelley, not to be calling you out, but I know that as you look specifically at the challenges of bringing together stories and history that cross oceans, that bring together languages and cultures where things might not communicate as clearly to a generation that didn't grow up with that, being able to bring those in with scripts, with characters, with pictures, with music, and all of those kinds of things that tell a story in ways that a printed page does not. So those are the kinds of things that get us excited. You saw in some of the materials that we've shared, I think many of you have followed us on our social media accounts or perhaps in our YouTube channel. And may have seen some of the discussions of new features as we've introduced them. Quite frankly, one of the ones that I'm most proud of is Quick Look. By the way, sometimes I call it Quick Look and sometimes I call it Quick View. And if I make that mistake, let me know. I try. Um, this is a feature that we kind of had an inkling for ways that it might help people when they're in the gallery and they see all of these reference portraits in the gallery to say, wait a minute, what picture was that from? And we had our own ideas about that, but quite frankly, it was you all as our members who came back to us and said, specifically, here's the problem that I'm trying to solve. I need to not only see the picture as clearly as I can, I need to see where in the picture that face is, and I need to see the title if I possibly can. And then we added to that also the ability to see how many other pictures does our software think is the same person as represented in this picture, which becomes very easy as you go through doing the reference. And let me give you a very quick demonstration of that. I'm going to, whoops, share my screen, which would be helpful to have it all on the same computer screen. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen, share sound, sure. And yes, this one. This is when I open up my screen and I have pictures waiting for me in the gallery. I will always see this, the reference list. I hit tab, and this is because I deleted this picture. So this was probably a very bad example. Yeah. So if you ever have this, a tip where you hit tab and see how that disappears, that is because the picture that I uploaded these from has since been deleted. So don't mind that. That's it's a consequence of how we're doing this. We uploaded an earlier version of this picture and then I deleted it, which is why that's appearing the way it is. So apologize for that. But when I upload a picture, and I'll do that right now, and then we'll come back and look at it later. You'll see the preview appears. Images for testing. Here we go. Demo set, sure. Add to Ponga 3, sure. That's my mom. Aw. So, oh gee, that didn't take very long. So while that clips through, I'm going to show you something else you may not have noticed. When you upload a picture, as soon as you upload a picture, a new album is going to appear over here. And this, for the second that album is blank, there it is. That is the picture that I just uploaded. So it was a date time stamp, which is right now, and I can easily change the name of that picture. Done, oops, for a demo. That reminds me to delete it later. I can go in and add anything I want to the description. This would be an album description, which you probably already know can include up to 1,000 characters and include links. Links are really interesting because when you paste in a link up here, you can have that link go to something like permanent.org, where you might have an archive of all of the related documents that relate to anything in this album. And that's the kind of thing that might be especially interesting for people who are doing genealogical research and want to have a repository, a safe, long-term repository for documents. And then you've got one place you can point to that, it's the archive, but then you can also have links in the picture itself. Up here in the gallery, oh, I didn't ignore these people. So we're waiting for that gallery to come back for the one picture of my mom. Some of the other things that we've learned, I'm jumping around a little bit of the different kinds of things that we have learned and discovered in the last few months as we have focused on other things in our Zoomin sessions. You see in my account here a number of pictures that are shared with me. Those of you who have taken up Victoria McGregor on her offer at our June session to accept her invitation to her pictures, this is what you would see. She has used a single picture as her main one that she shares in, usually for most people, as a view only. She's shared that with me directly. And then she has links to other pictures within them. And she's talked a lot about the techniques to be doing that, to be able to go back and forth between links in pictures and back to the main images as they take these different examples. So she has a lot of albums with a lot of different pieces with lots of links back and forth between them. And she started out doing that as a way to simulate, to Ponga port, as she called it, to convert a printed album into a digital version that she could engage her cousins with in a dialogue. Now, I just got a little bink in my ear that told me that a picture had appeared in my gallery. Basically, it was a notification of an inbound email. And here is the picture that I uploaded. I hit tab and notice this is the quick look feature. So the picture, the reference portraits appearing in my gallery. This is a face that's similar to other faces that I've uploaded. Well, I know that because I know who it is. And you notice down here at the bottom, I have to move my zoom controls. At the bottom, it shows this is the very long title. This is actually because I grabbed it from Instagram. And it shows the number of appearances. So it says, I'm not collecting any. When you name this person, you're not going to name a whole bunch of pictures at once. in this account, I have a lot of other pictures of this person anyway. So it's saying this one is distinct. If I hit the return here, oh wait, I have to be in my app itself, hit the name or hit a return here, and I'm going to start typing. So as soon as I start typing, it will look ahead to anything I've ever typed that uses those 3 characters. In my family, I have a lot of Loises. So this one I know is little Lois. This is my mother. And boom, named. So that's all it takes to name it. And you can see that if you just uploaded 50 pictures at a time, of which 10 are the same person, that one would have picked up the 10 as the same person if they're, reasonably close in age, and gone ahead and named them. And now I know that this picture is going to be in the Little Lois album. And I may need to do a quick refresh. Sometimes it takes a second to, there she is. She will appear in the album with the rest of the pictures. Obviously, this is a contemporary picture, as was this one, COVID. But you can see the different pictures of her as a child. It might have matched these 2 as the same person, but it was just enough different that it wasn't sure. Because pictures that you upload after you've named someone are held to a higher standard in terms of assumptions about them being the same person, because we don't want to mess that up. Are there any questions, just generally, while I'm in the user interface now? Any questions? Anybody had any issues or questions while using Quick Look? I think the most important unexpected one is that if, as you saw in that example, which by the way, yeah, as you saw in that example, which was terrible for a demo, where I clicked it and the picture disappeared, that's because the picture that I'd uploaded that included that picture, I had since deleted. Always a problem in demo accounts, but that's why that appeared that way. And shame on me for not being ready to do a quick demo for you.
Karen, did you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, trying to type furiously in the chat before I lose track of. Backing up to the description link that we have to work with, was that characters or words?
Oh, good question. Up here in the description of either a picture or a picture or an album, you have 10, I'll be a nerd, 1024 characters. So basically, conceptually, it's a paragraph. And if you exceed it, you'll see that you keep typing it, it'll start turning red. And that just tells you it's too much.
Okay,
anything that you type in that is a link, it will auto link, even if it's you don't include the HTTP. I don't know. I'm one of these people that the HTTP just it's ugly to me, so I always want to make it go away. So if you paste it into the description, it will auto link, but it can be prettier without the HTTP.
Thanks.
Good question, and obviously a question by a writer.
Kathy. Kathy, what's on your mind?
I notice in your demo that you no longer have all the albums that have the date that you uploaded the picture. How did you get rid of them?
Oh, you were not. All I did was I renamed it up here.
Okay, but what's happening to me is if I'm trying to upload things to existing albums,
Uh-huh.
I'm getting a date album for the day I uploaded them again.
What you're getting is that for each batch you upload, you get a date time stamped album. And if you want to put those pictures in an existing album, such as an album that says Abilene, Kansas, for example, you would have to take the picture and drag it into that album.
Right.
So, and it will remain, because pictures are pointers, if they came in an album, if you upload them and you have the date time stamped album, and then you move them in your mind, you're moving them into that other album, they will still be there in the date time stamped album. If you want to make that, let's pretend this was still an August 27th album, right? Let's pretend this is still a date time stamped album. If you want to delete that album because you moved it already into Abilene, right?
Yeah.
All you do is delete the album, but be careful.
Okay.
Delete the album, but keep the pictures.
Okay,
and
great.
This is a bit of user interface feedback we're well aware of, and that is the safer selection should be the one that's highlighted. At least that's red and, you know, you're going to be serious about it, but this is probably what you mean. Okay, so notice it disappeared.
Great, thank you.
And also notice that we didn't give you a second choice, so be very careful when you do that. And as a general rule, we are a tad aggressive with respect to delete. If you say delete, we do it. If you say ignore, we do it. We don't give you a lot of second chances, and that's a bit of feedback we're well aware of as well. In fact, same true in the gallery. You can name, you can skip, and you can ignore. Ignore is for real. If you say ignore, we're never going to bother you about it again. And I learned recently that that confused some people because in Ancestry, when you ignore, you can come back and look at again. It's like skip. And no, no, no. For us, ignore is for real. Now, we are looking at ways to be able to go back to the previously ignored and restore them, but a future feature. Little warning there. Okay?
Good, thank you.
These are good. Yeah, there's your question. Okay. I wanted to take a moment to mention two other things. One is the Zoomin pod and the other is kind of the Ask Audie. Now, I know that when I play with software and I'm going to trigger something that's going to send something to somebody else, I want to know what it looks like, right? It always makes me nervous to sort of see what that experience is like. In fact, I want to know the full cycle. What is their experience like when they receive the message from me? So we thought it would be helpful if we just make Audie available to everybody. Now, as you all probably realize, Audie, the little animated character that pops up in the little chat bot here, actually, I am Audie now as I'm logged in, is not really a person, it's me. Or it might be one of my colleagues, you know, manning, so to speak, the support windows here. But we thought it'd be helpful to create a way that you can know that you're safely chatting. You're not getting in any of our personal accounts. You're just chatting to test something out. And the doors are always open. You're always welcome to share pictures with us. And we will engage you in a chat that way too, so you sort of see what that experience is like. You can even ask questions that way. That's perfectly fine too. So that's what we call kind of the Ask Audie side, as well as, of course, being able to ask a question in here, or of course, search for articles in here, which is remarkably fast, I might add. And always, this is, you know, kind of not obvious, but that's how you make that little chat bot go away. And if I've been chatty with you, you can always, there's a clear button that will appear here that you can make go away as well. Finally is the point about Zoomin pods. We realized that as people are looking to engage their family, and again, Victoria has talked a lot about pulling her own family together, and when she has shared these pictures with her larger family, how to herd cats and bring all these people together. It's very often the same problem that family historians have in getting the rest of their family excited and interested in what their third great grandfather did. Nobody appreciates the hard work that I do. So we have made an offer. I mean, talking about pictures is often an easier entryway, a gateway drug, as a friend once said, into the rest of the story. And we thought we would offer this kind of a Zoom-in experience to talk to group in a family. Because bringing in a whole gaggle of cousins to agree on a date and time, it may actually be easier for us as an outsider to help coordinate that. And we've got a couple of software tools to make that easier to do. One is a tool called Doodle. Some of you may be familiar with. Very simple to have people vote on times that they can meet, and then you take the overlap of when they can meet and plan the doodle that way. Plan the actual meeting that way. And then second, of course, is a pro-level Zoom account that not everybody has handy, we're very happy to make ours available to you, to just bring that group together. And we don't think it's your job to explain what Ponga is and does. That's our job. So we'll be very happy to do that for you, and then let you engage as a family and talk through what, kind of a workflow. Hey, Bob, this is your end of the family. I know you grew up with Uncle John, and I'd love to have you make comments about blah, blah, blah. Essentially, that kind of a handoff within a family that works the social engineering to have the whole thing work. So we have already started those. We were delighted to see the response, and are looking forward to more of those. And this is free. We are doing the service for free because it just seems like it should be done. And we're going to keep learning from them. I can't say that it will always be free, but we are very happy to do it for our members. And of course, we do not expect that the people that you are inviting are also members. We rather expect that they will be your guests, and are very, very welcome to bring them in and get everybody going. Okay? So with that, I think I will step back for a second and let the conversation flow to the Q&A. I've got a dozen tips I can go back to at any given time. So one false move and I pull one of those out. All right?
Okay. What kind of, maybe we can ask, the audience a little bit about, in recent efforts that you've had, have you hit any hiccups, or are there things that you'd like to learn about that maybe you heard on a prior session that maybe you went and tried and didn't work for you, and you'd like maybe a little bit of a step-by-step walkthrough, or just new capabilities that you've heard about on a prior discussion that you never really maybe went into as much detail as you'd like to hear about? Marcy is asking a question about, she saw on our website that we can add documents and photos onto one page, and she'd kind of like to see a little bit of a demo about how that works.
Okay.
Let's walk her through a little bit about how we
Sure.
can add documents and things onto a page.
Sure, I'll be happy to do that. And also, I think this is a different Marcy asking the question.
Yes.
Is there a free trial period?
Yeah.
We are delighted to invite you to be our guest to a Ponga picture. And Marcy, I have your email address if you'd like. I would be delighted to invite you as a guest to one of our pictures. In fact, why don't we take a look at that picture as an example to answer the other question as well. So
while you're calling that up, I'll make just a remark that we don't really provide free trial periods in the way that you might think about from other services that you might have been exposed to, primarily because this is something that you generally invest some time and effort in, and free trial periods we frequently find are a little bit misleading in terms of how you interact with the product. So we provide literally an ongoing free capability that you can use for as long as you want, where we'll be happy to send you an invite to a photograph. We'll actually populate the photo into the account, and you can fool around with it for as much as you want to get a sense of what it would be like to populate the service with your own photographs and then curate the storytelling, etc. So we kind of give you kind of a sandbox for all intents and purposes to go and play with as much as your heart desires for as long as you'd like, to help you make a decision that this might be the service for you.
actually, I was wondering where that example is. I may not have that example in this account because we introduced it later. But yes, that's included in each picture. That's right. So this is the picture that I often use to invite people into Ponga, or Audie invites people into Ponga with. And this is actually from my own family. Well, I've called this the Harger family picnic because this is my great-grandfather Harger. And you were asking about attaching documents. This is my grandmother, Lois Harger Parker, who was, in fact, kind of the family historian. And there's a few things to note here. here. First of all, as you see here, this is how you can be attaching links to, you know, trees, family trees that might be in external sites that are behind paywalls or behind login walls. So this is the information about her, a person ID in Family Search. If you click that, no surprise, it goes to Family Search where you would log in. If you go down a bit further, here is how you would attach a document. You can attach virtually anything as a link. You can attach any link to anything anywhere on the internet. The only question is whether that content would be embedded or not. For content that can't be directly embedded. So here is an example of content that is embedded, and the full URL is included there, including the protocol specification, which is the https://. And this link is included here, and this is at permanent.org, where I have a personal archive, and I have placed an archive of a scan of this book, which is the archive, rather the family history book, self-published by my grandmother. And by the way, I went through and abridged it to take out all the pages as they related to living people. But that allows me to directly include a link to that book, and the metadata functions that permanent.org provides allows me to include things like the description, and I have in my configuration on Permanent allowed it to share this on the public side. So this link is publicly accessible, and that's why it appears as a preview. I can also include, let me see, a PDF. This is a PDF of a presentation. And I click on this, and it's coming, oh, I'm sorry, this is coming in from SlideShare, which is a website that I think is still owned by LinkedIn, that allows you to upload a PowerPoint file. If you're in Keynote, you can export into a PowerPoint file format, drag it into SlideShare, and then from SlideShare you copy the link, paste it into Ponga, and bada bing, it's there. This is a document. This is a PDF. Anything on the web that ends with .pdf, when you paste it into Ponga, we will go in and attempt to pull that file in. And I say attempt only because if it is an absolutely massive one, it will come in. It just will take a really long time. This one at 126 pages is, in my view, a little bit slow. That's not very good. That's kind of slow, but it's not bad. And then here is the complete document. That's how you would, you know, connect in a PDF. Now, I like to joke that you can include any kind of content. And then I go through a laborious, I have a blog post here because, you know, the internet and listicles. I have a laborious website here, or rather blog post here that goes through each of 12 kinds of content that can be added into a Ponga picture. But the truth is, it's basically paste. Paste the link and see what happens. That article will give you a little more subtleties on where to find the right link to get the behavior that you're probably expecting. And some of that is a little counterintuitive. This one is one of my personal favorites. This is Google Maps. You can go right into Google Maps and have a, you know, it's completely embedded in the sense that you can play with all of the different aspects of it. A sidebar opens, and here is a link. Notice without the HTTPS, this is gives you a link to a different Ponga picture that I'm not always sharing when I share this picture. And here is the messy business of the HTML that is needed to give you that full embedded street view. And this article here goes into detail about exactly how to do that. And that's the kind of thing that's a little bit fancy and just takes a little bit of fooling around. And conveniently, all of that is included in this article. You can find the article in the description when I share the picture.
So Marcy, can I assume by your happy face that your question got answered? And I don't just mean your face on Zoom, I meant your emoji.
I know. Yes, that's awesome. I was really happy to see I could take the Google Street View
Yeah.
or Google Earth and put that in there.
Yeah,
I
that's a
have to
really
say that
cool
was
feature, especially, I myself grew up in farms all over the Appalachia area, and a huge percentage of those things don't exist anymore. And so I like to put links to what things, where they were before and what's there now. And it's kind of an interesting juxtaposition. So it's a fun thing to do. Yeah, good. Glad you liked it.
Yes.
We also got a question from Karen regarding kind of what would be a good 5-step quick start process. And I don't know if you're, Karen, maybe let me ask you to jump in here, because I'm not sure if you're asking, would you like us to walk through a quick 5-stepper, or are you looking, would you like a piece of collateral that you can kind of hold in your hand or have something to refer to on a regular basis?
Yes.
The latter. Okay. Okay. So you're looking for a tool. Okay.
So a couple of ways. First of all, when you first log in, and you may already know this, you will get to walk through a welcome. So as soon as you land in the library, Audie pops up and gives you a tour. And walks through the bits. And I'm going to double check as to how you can ask for that tour a second time. It's possible, but I'll have to look at that on my own time. The second thing is to realize that behind this little question over here, is, I know that's hard to read. I know it's hard to see, but Audie does mention it when she goes through. This is our help center. And in our help center is a getting started that, things like how Ponga works, that walks through the very basics of what things are in the 3 core functions of organizing, telling stories, and sharing them. And this walks through those at a very high level, complete with little videos of how things move from within that, what to be expecting, that kind of thing. So if you're really looking for that,
There's another Marcy on this, and I'm like, what? I didn't say that.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Barbara. Yes, I want to look at it more thoroughly so that I understand it well, but I also want to be able to boil that down into a really quick, something you can remember on your hand that I can share with other people to make it seem simple.
So in that, that's another good point. We have developed for, believe it or not, the father of one of my colleagues, one of our co-founders' dads, is a regular on the Zoomin calls and a very active user and a wonderful supporter. And he's in his, I think, mid to late 70s. And he also wanted a piece of paper, and he wanted a piece of paper he could share with his cousins and relatives at reunions and things like that. So we've developed a handy little handout. Actually, I made it available straight to him. I've made it available to a few others that have asked. That's a great question. Is that something that many of you would like? We can make that more widely available as something that can be printed.
Yeah, I took a note on that, Barb. We'll talk about that, Karen. That's a really great tip. We've tried to do as much as we can in either the digital delivery of tutorials and tours and things like that, and also we've got extensive tips and tricks. But sometimes I'm like you. Barb is, from a technical and product perspective, she's like so far above my pay grade. It's not, I'm kind of like you. I just want to whip out a quick, like a Post-it note and be able to say, okay, this is my little diagram of the things that I need to do and jump right into it. So that's a good note. I took it in red pen on my notepad here, and we will follow up with that because I think that's a really good idea. And let me ask you one more qualifying question. Would you be okay if we provided that as a digital deliverable, or would you actually like something you could print out and maybe just lay down next to your laptop so you don't have to search for it?
I
Like a
would prefer
PDF.
probably a digital, and then I will print it out for myself. But then that lets me also, as I'm talking with potential new folks that I want to bring into the Ponga fold, or people I'm working with in a workshop, that I could possibly, I can print it out on my own end and say, here's your cheat sheet. When you get into there, this is how simple it is, so that they don't have all the wonderful explanation, which is great. They can do that later if they want to, but they've just got a really simple, quick start.
Yep, great. That's a good
Good
tip.
feedback.
And we'll
And
put it in maybe a PDF format or something. And Shelley, I saw her nodding her head as well. So yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And frankly, we want to provide whatever level of help we can from anybody whose family hails from a place called Possum Trot, North Carolina. So that's terrific. I love that name, by the way. I'm going to use that name later today. And I'm damn well going to go look and figure out where the heck that is, because that is just the coolest name of any town ever.
Well, you'll like this. There's a cross. I have a photo of this. There's a sign it's Possum Trot, and the other road is Lick Skillet. So this is the mountains of North Carolina.
Oh, wait a minute. Are you serious? Okay, somewhere you got to send us just
Picture.
for kicks and giggles a
Pics-
picture of that
pictures
road.
or it didn't happen. Actually, we can probably look that up on.
Could you send that to us? We'd love to use that photograph. That would be
Well,
terrific.
it's got my sister-in-law in it, and she's camera shy. Let me see if I can find one. I can crop that part out and send it to you.
We'll check
spectacular.
Google Maps. If Google
Okay.
Maps covers Skillet, Lick,
And Possum Trot. Yeah.
and Possum Trot.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, Lick Skillet and Possum Trot, and I'll go through my stuff.
That sounds cool. Barb, we got another question that this is another thing that I think that we might need to provide is maybe a little bit of a tool for the professionals on the call. And Marcy is asking a question, which is a good one. And by the way, Marcy, thanks for also the reminder that I was moving too quickly when I talked about Save Your Photos Month. And I think I mispronounced, or I said share your photos, but it is Save Your Photos Month for the photo managers. But Marcy's asking a question that could be a little bit on anybody's mind. And, this is an interesting situation because when we developed Ponga at the outset, we did this originally as a project to solve problems for the founders as it related to us, being able to digitize and effectively organize our own photos and then curate them for the great stories that are behind these photos and then share them with our families and have them crowdsource all the information that we never knew about a lot of these people that were in our family circle. And we never could find a single product that did all of the elements that we needed to have done end to end, which is how we originally arrived at the architectural underpinning of the product. And so frequently people ask us questions like, well, what do you do that Forever doesn't do? Or what do they do that you don't do? Or Permanent or Collectionaire, et cetera. And so I'm going to ask Barb in a second to just walk through that a little bit so you have a sense of that. And Marcy from Halifax, I know that you are a Collectionaire user and you've not been particularly enthralled with the product, and we'd love to help differentiate it. We don't consider, we don't want this to come across as being, pejorative or accusatory or whatever, because there's places for all these products in the marketplace somewhere. We all do different things. And the one thing that I definitely want to highlight at a very high level, and then Barb can talk a little bit more about some of the features and strategies, is that we are first and foremost a digital storytelling service. We are not a photo repository. We are not a place to go edit photos and things like that. Now, having said that, we will store your photos. We'll store one photo or 100,000 photos, and we will never charge you for them. That's not the business we're in, so that's not a part of our business model. We're here to help you get the photos in there so you can start the fun part of really curating the stories and crowdsourcing all the cool stuff that happened in these photos to develop this 360-degree kind of history around what's going on in all these images and artifacts that we have shoved in closets and under beds. So that's really the focus of where most of the features in our product are. So, we're happy to repository and store your photos, but if you're looking for, like real serious capabilities in terms of what you can do with the repository, then we're probably not the best choice for you, because we're more of what you do with the photos, not where you keep them, if that makes sense. And we partner with other companies, most notably Permanent, that you may or may not know about. If you don't know permanent.org, you should go check it out. It's a really cool feature or company that has a lot of features around an endowment-based nonprofit that is there for literally lifetime storage in exchange for a small donation. And it's a very interesting business model. They do really one or two things, and they're probably 1 foot wide, but 20 miles deep in terms
Yeah.
of the functions they offer for you. I don't know if anybody wants to weigh in on that. Kathy, did
Yeah.
you sound like you wanted to say something?
I'm sorry, what company was that again?
Permanent.org.
Permanent.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're a really solid outfit, and they're burgeoning in terms of their size. They're like I say, they're a nonprofit, which is unique in this industry. And again, it's an endowment model that in exchange for a donation, they will take care of your photos for the rest of time. Okay. So Barb, with that, maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the other questions. We get questions about Forever and Collectionaire all the time because they're, big companies. They've been around for a while, but they fundamentally do something a little bit different than we do.
Yeah, I think probably the high level
Hey, everybody.
point to
Um,
can sorry
somebody asking a question?
no maybe
Oh, go ahead. Yep.
At a high level, the important thing to understand, as Cameron's saying, we've built ourselves to be a digital storytelling platform. To do that, we need your pictures, of course. And I've talked about how we take your the images that you upload in however big they are, as long as they're TIFF, JPEG, or PNG image files. And again, it doesn't have to be a photograph. It can be an illustration or anything, a document that is a precious document of some sort. But as long as it's in one of those three formats, we take that in, make a working copy, and we archive the original. We archive that original so it is there for you if you need it back, something terrible happened to your other files, that kind of thing. And then what we work with is that working copy that we do our magic on so that when it's presented in a web page, you can see it quickly and easily on any kind of screen. Now, what's really important and not obvious from that is that we have separated the artifact of the file from what you're sharing. That's a link. You're not sharing the file itself. You're sharing a link. In most cases, when you look at, for example, in Google Photos, when you look at a page in Google Photos, you are looking at a URL, certainly, but that URL is presenting the JPEG or PNG file, that sort of thing. And that's where you get into all this trouble about changed metadata, that kind of thing. We take your original and it's put away. And what we're working with, we turn it into an HTML URL. And then all of the content that you're putting into it are selections, pixel ranges, technically, that in our back end, we are keeping a map of this image, this URL, and this pixel range is this content. And then that content might be text, it might be a link, it might be another image. It might be the data of the faces that are associated with that image. All of that massive, you can sort of visualize that as a massive table of information, we're all keeping entirely private. So I walk through those elements to sort of understand conceptually, oh, this is different. So it's different from something like Google Photos, which is really there to be your storage mechanism. And quite honestly, I use it myself because it's the best way to get those cat pictures off of my phone and into, come on, you know about the cats, right? And they're really cute. Into the cloud, and the album that my nephew shares of the baby pictures and all that stuff. That's in there. But when I want to get into this family history, in my case, I'm mostly following the Harger side because I happen to have a big collection of those photos, and my husband's side, my father-in-law, and this extraordinary story about coming from China. And take those kinds of pictures. That has a weight of stories that I've never been able to capture before. And so that's what I'm doing in all of these things. As compared to, and you know what? You guys all probably know Collectionaire and Forever way better than I do, because no surprise, I'm not an active user. But as we understand it, fundamentally, what our members have told us and what we've seen in trade shows and whatnot is just the concept is different. So the use cases are different, and it might be that they're perfectly fine to use together. So for example, Forever's model is about again, an endowment. You pay in once and you've got that confidence that it's stored there. And they've wrapped that around with all kinds of wonderful picture things that you can do with it, scrapbooky things that you can do with it, like kind of like a Canva, which is very cool, very neat, very different from what we're doing. On the other hand, with Collectionnaire is very cool in that you have all these cloud services that you bring in, and you're not pulling that into their service directly, but you're able to do things like create a family tree and put little paragraphs and things like that, which is very cool, very neat. It's not what we're doing. So from our perspective, yeah, sure, there's some overlap of when you might want to do what. But you know, we're not in the business of judging anything of why you did what. Like I said, I use Google Photos, and there's lots of reasons why it's not as good as Apple Photos. I concede that. But on each of these things, we make some personal choices about workflow. And then what is the problem? I've always been a product manager. What is the problem you're trying to solve? From our perspective, the problem that we're trying to solve is how to capture these memories. And we talk a lot about stories. And my husband had a genius line this morning. He showed me an article about people that are collecting, that there's a movement to go from football tickets that are paper to digital tickets, and how fans are outraged because they're collecting the tickets. And those tickets, dog-eared and covered with bird poop, are, memories. They are important memories. And that at Ponga, we really, memories versus stories. And I thought a lot about that. I think that's a really interesting thought. I know Karen is exactly the right person to talk about that at our session next month. And in fact, this whole save your photos. And with Kathy and Cabal, we're also talking about save your photos, save your stories, and obviously Ponga your stories, because it is capturing those stories, those memories, those moments that are not only your own, but also of your loved ones, and putting them somewhere that they can be shared, because it's not about the pictures. It's about what you can't see in the pictures. It's about those moments that are inside there that were important and they're worth having the conversation about. And then sharing those, because when you're sharing the why that moment was important, you're sharing values.
Yeah.
You're sharing the identity. In my husband's father's perspective, he's carrying forward a family diaspora. He's telling why the culture is so important. And that's incredibly important. All of us have come, as Americans, we've come, and Canadians, we have come from other places. In fact, all over the world, of course, we have all come from different places and bring with us the cultural ties that we've come from. And, there we go.
So Marcy, I don't know if that answers your question, but from a very high level, I think that the point that we're trying to make is that the intent of what we're trying to solve is a very different problem than the intent of what some of these other companies are trying to solve. And if you're very story centric and you're really about trying to understand how is the best way to curate through the addition of not only memories, voice notes, text, etc., but all of the multimedia elements that could be attached to an image to kind of bring color to those memories, and then turn around and share them with other people, as well as crowdsource additional input, we're your people, because that's really what we do. If you're just looking for a place really to repository stuff, we're probably not your people. But if you choose somebody like Permanent, for instance, one of the great things about it is if you put everything in Permanent, you can access all of those elements as part of your curation process in Ponga.
Right.
And that's really kind of a fun thing, right?
Right.
So we can help you use our platform to be the curation nexus for all of the storytelling and sharing componentry.
Yeah.
So, maybe, I don't know, if you guys think about it, we probably could, Barb and I probably could sit down and do a feature to feature or capability to capability thing. But I'm not sure that that's really, the relevant point here as much as it is what the spirit and intent of what we're trying to do. So Marcy, if that's comfortable for you, then we'll probably leave that there. unless you want us to go into more detail. And Kathy, I know you had a question, or you had your hand up a few seconds ago.
I was
Let me,
just
yeah,
gonna
but let me make sure that Marcy, are you good with that, what we just did there? Perfect, thank you.
I would also
Kathy?
add
Oh,
that, excuse me, I would also add that any of you who have some insights and thoughts based on using other products that you'd like us to think about, drop me a note. You know, I'm Barbara at Ponga, and always welcome that kind of insight and feedback because, as I said, you know, we're not active users of those products ourselves. It's a startup. We're focused on the work that we have to do here to deliver everything from a quick start guide to future features that we're working on, and really look forward to learning. And we've already learned a lot
and
from
the other
there.
thing too, by the way, is that just as an add on there, anybody that spent, you know, more than 2 of these sessions with Barb and I know that we come from, generically speaking, a technology centric background, which means that we are intensely listening to our customers and our prospects and our clients. And so, you know, every time we listen to you guys talk, even if you're making comments, we are always listening, not only with the intent to answer your questions and help you use the product better, but we're also taking that as input that if you have certain questions about things, that's a cue for us that maybe we didn't do something as well as we could have done, or there's maybe a feature or a function or something that we need to think about as part of our roadmap. So I never want you guys to feel shy about tossing a note, putting your hand up saying, hey, you guys, what the hell were you thinking when you did this? Or, hey, you know what might make this easier to use? If you just did this over here. We love that kind of input. And we're always learning from you guys. So please don't feel any compunction ever to toss that stuff out. Okay. Sorry, Kathy, back to you. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly say that I think am I still muted? No.
No.
That with familiarity with some of those with the other programs, I am a huge forever user. I'm a forever user. And I think what struck me with Ponga, and Barb and Cameron know this when I first saw them at Roots Tech, was the ability to easily tell stories and put them right on a picture, because even for my own sake or for working with clients, it's such a fast way. And I don't know that there's very many other ways in any of those other programs that make it easy. You have to record a video, you have to, or an audio, you have to attach it. You can't just hit that little record button and tell your story. And even for the photos, now I'm telling stories from generations past, but the stories to tell of your own, even when my family look at those, at some point I'll be grandma or great grandmother, I hope. It'll be, even though I'm telling the stories about my great grandmother, it'll be in their great grandmother's voice. And to me, priceless, worth everything. So
Absolutely. Thank you.
and
So
In fact,
Kathy,
also we can't ignore facial recognition either. Like, bonus on the facial recognition.
Yeah, we're pretty good at that.
You're pretty good at that. And so there's the organizing element, but I've reached the point where my photos aren't organized, but now I'm putting in, it's very easy to put a story in, tell the story, and it's done. And I can move on to the next one. I can read the stories of my aunt into Ponga. It's quick and easy. I don't have to try and retranscribe her stuff to go with each picture. That's what I think sets it apart. There's things it doesn't do that other things do. As Cameron said, you're not trying to be everything to everybody, but that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Kathy.
thank you.
Karen, you had you had a question before you were trying to wedge in, and then Alan,
yeah,
I'll get to you right after.
I just wanted to ask Kathy, because I'm brand new at this and I'm just soaking it all up. You can actually record your voice, or someone in your family can record their little bit of story on the picture.
Yeah.
Oh, be still my oral historian's heart. That is fantastic. Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
I
maybe
can do you a
while I
quick
take
demo.
while I take Alan's question here, you can
Yes.
kind of get that
Cue up a
ready.
demo. You got
Yeah,
it.
Alan, what do you got?
Well, I really want to say how you guys have such an amazing product. Honestly, I'm just fascinated by it and all the things it can do. It's really great.
Thank you.
And I hate to ask this in a way that sounds like a wet blanket or something, but I don't know where else to get the answers. And it's probably information you guys would like to have, if, or you've already thought about it. There's two big concerns I have. Number one is you don't compete with anybody else that I see at all. Like I work with Forever, not as an employee, I'm just a client and, you know, just on my own. And they do a specific thing totally different from what you do. And I've tried out some of the other
Just a few more minutes.
things. But the the point is, if I am going to take so much time and put in all of this information, photos, stories, links, which is fantastic, I have a concern about the long term of that availability in a couple of ways. One is that means I have to keep subscribing indefinitely to the program in order to have it available to other people. And secondly, there's no way to export that product, which I know would be a massively different approach from what it is that you're doing. But in sort of a dream world, if I had a way of being able to use software that was created by Ponga on my own website and build something like that, you know, that would be brilliant. You know, I'd pay a large amount of money for the software to be able to do that. In lieu of that, if I had some way of exporting what I've done to a website, then at least I know that it's kind of preserved indefinitely. So I know that's kind of a big can of worms, but I just
No. Those are great
throw it out.
questions. As a matter of fact, we might want to come back to you even on an offline discussion and have some conversations about that. What you're talking about, just for everybody who's here, the questions Alan's asking is a lot about platform architecture and the way that our product works. And part of the magic of Ponga, because of all of the capabilities that we're using that are algorithmically driven underneath, that have to do with things like facial detection and machine learning and things like that, are part of the, you know, to be banal about it, are part of the fundamental magic about how we keep all of this stuff knitted together, and how we've gone from keeping portability of file types rather than inventing unique file characteristics that change fundamentally what your photographs and what your information is all about. We try and stay as close as we can to industry standards. So in fact, that if you want to do something downstream with these capabilities, that's going to be there, as well as the fact that from a product development perspective, some of the stuff that Alan's touching on are actually things that we are thinking about already for the next generation of our product. So, so Alan, let me take the product stuff a little bit offline, because some of that stuff is technically deep. You sound like you might be reasonably technically sophisticated. We might want to have an offline conversation, and then maybe share it with the group.
I do want to say I'm not. I do want to be real clear, because I don't want you to invest your time in something, because I'm really honestly not. I am not that capable. That's why I'm.
Well, no. When I say technically, I'm not talking about we're gonna share with you all of the calculus on how we develop algorithms. I wasn't meaning that. It was more about the feature function capability as you're thinking about it from a use case perspective. We know how to translate that into tech. That's what we do for a living. So what we're more interested in is that the use case as it relates to the way we think about our platform. So we definitely might want to have that downstream conversation and then share the outcome with the rest of the team here.
Let me also add to that, Cameron, is that we I wrote a blog post about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Can I get my stuff back? I think is the title of the blog post, something like that. And it speaks to that concern in two ways. First is the concern of, wait a minute, do I have to just keep paying a monthly subscription? How does that work? And we answer that question of, you know, what if I lost my wallet or something like that? And the short answer is, if you were a member and for some reason stopped paying, you basically become a guest. And so we don't destroy your content. It's there. You can log into it. All of the shares are pulled back, and you can't upload more pictures until you become a member again. And then, of course, if you want us to destroy and close your account, we will, of course, also do that, because they are your pictures. And then the second thing spoke to the pull what we put into what you've put into your content and get that back, and so we address that there as well.
The net of it is, your pictures are yours. We're not one of these.
Ponga, and it's, you know, and I, at the conference, Peter Bennett did a presentation of forever versus collectionaire versus permanent.org. And this is a new entry into that trio. And they're like, we're a little bit different. And so I'm always trying to find a place for clients to like have websites. If they want to do a family website, what's going to be the best place for them? And this place might be, and they, Kathy Stone did a presentation and we're going to talk. She's going to walk you through it.
Yeah, that's a great tip, Marcy. If you have actually a link to that presentation, that would be great. Peter Bennett and I spent about an hour on the phone about 2 months ago, and we talked about that very item. And that's a really good reminder. It might be a good idea for us to get a link to that presentation. And so thanks for that heads up on that. I wasn't aware that he had done something like that. So that might be a really
Peter.
way to communicate that. Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you.
So let me further develop Alan's question.
And Karen also has a question.
From the perspective that your photos are yours. We're not one of these services that take the photos in and repurpose them, do anything else with them. We are a membership service, which means we don't sell advertising, which means we're not selling your personal data to people. So they can sell you Toyotas or knitwear or sneakers. That's just not the business we're in. So your photos are under your strict control. If you want them back, we'll send them back to you. If you want the metadata and the stories back, we'll send that stuff back to you. They won't be knitted together. You'll still have to go through that exercise. But if you want all that stuff back, you can have it. You know, if you want to cancel your subscription, you can do that. Or if you want to put it in suspense, you can do that. We will maintain your account forever. So as long as your photos are there, even if you're not paying and you want to come back, you can get access to them again, or you can still view them forever, even if you're not paying the subscription. You just can't upload any more photos. You can't invite any people, and the sharing will be turned off. Okay, but everything that you did in there is designed to stay in there because we don't want to monkey with your account unless you tell us. Now, if you want us for whatever reason to destroy your account and you give us written authorization, we will in fact delete the account, all of the metadata, all of the photographs, etc., and we will digitally destroy all of that stuff so that you can be comfortable that it's now
I think
gone.
it would be a good option for
Not in the domain.
Peter or anybody else who wants to.
Yeah.
Now,
Cameron, I'm sorry. I just want to say that piece of information I have never been able to find anywhere, and that's news that the account is kept permanently. Because the illusion is that it's kept sort of indefinitely, or that after a time it's not clear. So if it's permanent, a la Ancestry, where you build a tree and you can someday go back to it, that's very different, and that's a really important piece of information. Thank you.
Okay.
Sure, and an
Hey,
important
Marcy,
distinction as.
Wait a minute, Marcy Brennan. It seems like there's a lot of background noise. Could you mute your? I couldn't tell if you were asking a question, or if there's something in the background.
Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks. Let me augment that with one more thing that I think is an important thing that maybe didn't come across as well. And thanks for that heads up, Alan. If you didn't see that, we'll go back and read that stuff and make sure that it's very clear and crisp as to the disposition of the accounts. The other thing that we'll be announcing very shortly is that we'll be also allowing our members, especially members where maybe the account is held in an elder's name, that if you want to either bequeath that account to heirs, you want to put it into a power of attorney, or you want to make it a part of a living will in case anybody becomes cognitively impaired, they will be able to move their subscription and all the work that they've done to a survivor or to an heir, okay? So that you'll be always comfortable that whatever work and whatever activity and whatever investment in time and effort that went into the curation of all these memories will survive that individual, okay? So I think we got all did we get all the outstanding questions here? I think we did.
Have. I wanted to follow up. I think we're hitting, it's 15 minutes, almost 15 minutes after the hour, and I want to make sure that we don't drag these on too long as well. And if there aren't any other questions, I wanted to circle back to some of the stuff that we talked about briefly in terms of the photo managers campaign.
Excuse me for interrupting, Barb. When we got deep into this conversation, I don't know if we ever went back and talked about the voice recording capability.
Oh, That was it. That was your question, Karen. And I'm
Okay,
all
there we
set to
go.
do a little quick demo too. Okay,
I'm not
no
just a pretty
problem.
face.
No, not at all. So here we are. This is the picture that I uploaded earlier. And let me just add a little memory here. And I've got to move my Zoom components. And this, of course, you saw me make a selection because this is a picture that I uploaded, or if I have invited somebody to be my guest and add comments, they'd be able to do that too. This becomes orange. The sidebar opens. I could have dragged in a picture from anywhere in my own library, but I can also just click a button and allow the microphone to use my voice microphone, and then I just start recording my voice, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter what I say. I can go on for as long as I want and hit stop. And if I did my settings right, microphone, and then I just start recording my voice. It's that easy. And done. And now this sound is right here. Microphone. And then I just start. So in that way, I can be adding the recording at any time. I can also, as is mentioned in some detail in this article and is in that family pictures, the Harger family pictures, a family picnic article. I can also paste in a link to SoundCloud, for example, or any other site to include sound. Now, for media, one of the things that I'm exploring the best tools for, and we'll be updating some of these articles, are the simple tool of the voice memo, because sometimes those ideas happen at the most unexpected moments, right? You know, my father-in-law is 94 now, and he just snaps into the storytelling. My husband was up visiting with him, and he'll tell these stories in a combination of English and Chinese. And so my husband was up meeting with him, and I said, just hit voice memo and put the phone down. That's it. Don't let technology get in the way of a good story. And then just, be silent. Don't interrupt it. Don't rustle the phone. Just leave it alone and record for as long as you need to, and then quietly tap it away and then send me the file. And he did that. It was wonderful. And then I just have this little library of files. I'm popping those files into permanent. I can also pop them into Google Drive. Google Drive is particularly good for it. And what I'm looking for are what are the services that do the embedding nicely. It has to do with how the technology is implemented on the host side to bring that in. And actually, come to think of it, there was one question I saw zip by in the chat, which related to, can I include video? And it's exactly the same way. We can embed content from external sites, and any external site that's driving media, such as video, video sites, we can embed that content directly into a Ponga picture. So let me go back and share again. So here is that same picture that is less about stories and more about different kind of content. And as you see here, I just mouse over his belly, where I happen to know there is a YouTube video. And he was well known as a storyteller in the family. He wrote several books about the Old West, and was based in Abilene, Kansas, which was the end of the Chisholm Trail. So this YouTube video establishes the whole, surround sound for that kind of experience, and seemed like an appropriate place to put that. Here is the sound cloud. Our partner's daughter is a wonderful pianist, and here is a stream that you may have heard a few times, Claire de Lune, which I have integrated into an audio track on a few of our social media posts. But anywhere you post to the public network that is designed so that content can be embedded into web pages, almost guaranteed will work perfectly. things like taking a voice memo and popping it into Google Drive, no, it wasn't really designed to do that. But we know you want to have a way to put these essentially privately, but have them be immediately accessible. You can have them be entirely private behind a wall in much the same way that I showed you earlier you could with your Ancestry or Family Search and so on. It's just that the people who listen to it have to be able to log in to be able to see that. I hope that was clear enough. Kind of quick. But again, that kind of stuff is
That was great.
covered in
Yeah,
that
Karen, we'll get
12
that as
kinds of
well.
content.
Yeah, thanks. That's just great.
I didn't show it directly, but if you did add sound in using that the record button, you can right click that playable, right click it, and it'll say something like capture audio stream or something like that. Copy that link, paste it into, or actually you just paste that into your browser, it immediately downloads the audio file. So again, the whole point is that you are keeping all of your own content in a standards format. You're not wedded to Ponga. You can keep that yourself.
And that brings up, just to add as fine a point as possible on Barbara's best practice advice on the recording thing is that unfortunately, and fortunately, fortunately, when you get a lot of these photos, they're in Ponga, you get the opportunity of doing curation because you're sitting there and you're focused on it. And we try and get people to think about using this incrementally as a way of building up this entire library of memories and anecdotes around the photos. And that's kind of a linear process and it's under your control. There is this idea that in a nonlinear fashion, stories kind of are where they occur. So if a story is happening right in front of you because you're with your mom, an uncle, whatever, get that phone out and capture that, record that, start the record button, and then you can upload it to Ponga later,
right.
Rather than trying to reproduce it, because that way you can grab those stories when they're most authentic, which is in that initial telling, right? And so the more effective you can be there, and gosh, every one of us is traveling around 24/7 with a recorder in our pockets. And so just get that phone out, hit the voice note, and off you go. And we can upload it later.
I'll even add that a nice thing when you're recording someone else's voice in your picture, every comment that you add is attributed to you, right? There's that, what we call the display name, and that's your name. But you're in your account, in your name, and you're talking to your 87-year-old aunt. You want to capture that, but you don't want to make it look like it was your comment. So a nice thing to do is to grab a picture of them and drag that in first and then click the record button. And don't worry about writing this down. This is also in the instructions in there. It's the same as the cameo. That's one of the objects. You can add a picture. Add the picture first, then click the record button. And now you have the face of the person and their voice recording. So it's kind of clear who it was that said what. And that's a nice way to do that too.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you, everyone. We've gone, as we always do, really long. Thank you for all your attention and participation. I love these sessions because once we get up and rolling, everybody kind of jumps in and asks questions, and we appreciate all the interactivity. You'll all get like a email summary with a link to the recording, and we may actually even add some information about offering the Zoomin pods for your families or groups, and any kind of introductory tours. Marcy from Halifax, if you would like to get a personal look-see, we would be happy to walk you through the product on a one-on-one basis as you get up and running, and happy to help you get productive with the system as much as possible. Anybody that's tried to find information, if you can't always find it on our website, I included a link earlier in the chat thread around tips, our tips page and our blog page. They're also in the footer of the website. And all of you, please, if you can't find what you're looking for, you can always go to our social presence on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, where we almost always post versions of what we've done on our blogs and our tips and tricks pages there for you to be able to consume in a more interactive format. So, okay. So thank everybody very much. We will, Karen, I've taken down, we will come up with something around the 5-step quick start idea, and pass that by you to see if it meets your requirements, and Everybody, thank you very much. We will be doing this again next month, and Karen will be our guest speaker. So please register and feel free to drop by, and we'll look forward to another good session.
The registration page will be open just as soon as I update it and get the video out there, and can't wait to see you all. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you, everybody.
Nice to see you again. Bye-bye.